possess the other becomes a replacement for the connection that the rejection type assumes is not on the table.
Absolutely.
So with mother stuff is 1-to-1 and it's very intimate, close, and that's analogous to 2. And father is like when your father takes you somewhere to go experience something and go see something. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Totally. Like that's the story that the rejection type has for themselves.
Yes.
But they're not half a fucking person.
Right.
Yeah, you got them, you possessed them. Then there's the surrender part. You know what I'm saying?
Big hormone enneagram.
Hi, I'm John Lukovich, sexual self-pres, 45 wing, 458 trifix.
Hi, I'm David Gray, self-pres sexual 9 with 1, 974 trifix.
What up? It's Emeka. I'm an 817, sexual self-pres with 854 fixes.
Hi, I'm Nancy. I am a self-pres social 3, wing 4, with a 369 trifix. If you like our podcast, guys, make sure you go like and subscribe on the Apple Podcast app. And if you really like us, you should definitely leave us a review.
Ever since we did the first one, I had like a week where every day, like a new insights were flooding in where I'm just like feverishly trying to write it down, just like the new words to sort of capture exactly what I think is going, at least what resonates with me. And so Joseph had some insights that we sort of tried to quickly capture, and there was a couple new things that came out of that call, such as like the different ways that rejection types are very sensitive to what degree that they're penetrating the other, and that opened up a whole new vista of realizations about rejection. And then I realized what it all came together, like it came back to that thing that David initially said on the first call, where the type structure of rejection is shaped by penetration. And when you put penetration and leverage together, what do you get? It's different degrees of possessing the other, which that word is generally associated with sexual 8, and which is kind of what started this whole thing. Is like, I don't really relate to the idea of trying to occupy someone's attention. It's not really getting at what's going on. But what rejection types are trying to do is, in their offering, is that rejection is assuming that two-way connection is off the table. I'm a fraction of a person, subconsciously don't believe it's possible. So the only way that I can make contact with another is through my offering, and that offering has to make up for the fact that I can't receive, or I don't expect to receive. So I have to penetrate the other to reach a place within the other that is potent enough where they can't leave. So I instead of connection, which I don't believe is possible, I settle for possession, which ensures that I remain cut off from the other.
Yes, definitely.
But it's also kind of like a shadow in the way, because to possess and to have an underlying desire to possess is kind of the opposite of rejection, amputation.
Oh, yeah.
That's maybe one angle.
Well, the word rejection just has several connotations because it implies a choice. Retroactive amputation is something that you said that was really good. And the distinction I try to make with on the call with Joseph is that it's the assumption that it's not available. That the parts of me that that can't apply leverage are not available, and that's something I try to. Go ahead.
So I want to jump in. There's sort of two things that come up, and I just got I listened to the last pod with Joseph like in little bits and pieces, so I might be losing some threads, but
yeah.
So the first thing is when I describe sexual 8 as like wanting to occupy someone's attention, like I don't mean it's like performing so that you're like, look at me, but it's like to penetrate into them so it's like they don't even see anybody else, It's like it's not like the sexual 8 wants to be on like energized in your face all the time. It's like, all right, after you've met me as a man, like there no other men exist. Like you will not meet another man,
right.
Like you can go to the grocery store, you can go out with your friends, you can do whatever, but you won't know of another man. You know what I'm saying?
Here, okay, let me provide a little bit more, because that is getting closer to it, but it's even more penetrating than that. So here's what all the rejection types are trying to do. I realize that all the rejection types are, because I listened to the Nick Loss interview and I was floored. I don't know if either of you had watched that one.
Yeah.
I was floored because I was like trying to see if he was using similar language, because I haven't watched what he was saying, and I was wondering if, from a two perspective, if he was approaching, or if I could relate to what he was saying. And it was just, I was floored because he was using a lot of the same language even before, we did this call, and he said something about, like, he's looking for vulnerability in the other's heart, something that he can take care of, and that as a two, he doesn't, the shadow of the two is that he doesn't believe that the connection is on the table. So the only thing that can guarantee that the person stays is if he finds this vulnerability in this other person's heart that only he can take care of.
Mm-hmm.
And when I read that, I was just like, I had to pause and like walk, because I was like, oh shit, that's the core of what each of the rejection types are trying to do this. So the 5 wants to penetrate and drill into the head center and find this like untouched portal of discovery, symbolic object or point of discovery. And the 8 wants to expand on a leverage point, something so potent that because the body center is about being and it's about experience. So to rewrite an experience for someone, for maybe like attraction or a social dynamic, to rewrite it in such a way that it completely obliterates what came before and what came after. So it's not that no other men exist. It's more that I've rewritten what it means to be attracted to a man.
Right. Yeah. Right. Yeah.
So, to the sense that you could be attracted to someone else. It's not to say that you couldn't be with someone else. Is that it's not going to be this.
Yes.
So it's not. So I was thinking about competition and jealousy. And one of the things that I like, the way you frame the sexual instinct, it rings true, but it's not. It's not as a body type. I wouldn't frame it that way. So like you say, putting yourself ahead of sexual competition. I was reflecting on that after all this rejection talk, and I was like, you know what? That's very much like a heart-centered frustration perspective, because from the rejection point of view, if I reach, or my offering or my existence penetrates deep within the other and reaches this previously untouched place and rewrites what that even means, it obliterates the idea of competition. It's like I'm occupying a place within the other, or I'm possessing a place within the other that no one else can touch. So not to say that person might not fall in love again or experience chemistry with someone else, but it's just going to be something else. It's not going to be this. Do you get what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I do. And like, I think that's accurate from the point of view of rejection, but I think that as like in there, so one of the things that you guys said, and maybe I'm mishearing or whatever in the thing with Joseph, was that it's not that rejection types are rejecting themselves. It's that I can't remember the way you put it, but that they are rejecting themselves. And it's like all the leverage stuff, all like 2, for example, has to resist their own protective function. They have to resist their own autonomy, right? Mm-hmm, they're like constantly pushing that away to keep their relationships going. It's because they don't trust in that their own autonomy, that they have to keep leaning into relationships. But then as soon as the parts of them that would represent their autonomy, their protective function start to surface, they do cut those off and resist them and kind of say to themselves unconsciously, like, I have to double down into relationship. I have to use my, I have a super ego guilt that I'm doing something that is pulling me out of the relational field or whatever.
Yes.
Like 8, it's like you see it all the time with 8s. It's like you can see that things do touch their heart.
Right.
It's like I understand it's like just an issue of language, but like in like it's like 8s have all that soft spot in them.
Right.
It's just that they are resisting it. Like, they're cutting it off, but it's not like totally severed. And so sometimes it leaks up out of the surface and like the archetype built, like I think stories are illustrative of stuff. And so like, you'll see like the story of the gruff older 8 man who befriends a young child or an animal or something. And it's like,
Right.
like Logan, like I love Wolverine.
Yeah.
It's like Logan is like, he's got this girl that like sort of represents his heart. And it's like, oh shit, it actually is there the whole time.
Right.
So with the thing about sexual competition, it's like, I mean, the rejection, no matter what type you are, rejection wise, there's insecurity there because the ego is just insecure.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like cutting off. It's like, no, I'm totally dominating it. But it's like, there's still some way that the 8 is needing to do the penetration.
Right.
As an insecurity thing, but they're also doing the penetration as a partial self. So there's a certain way in which it results in some kind. I mean, it again, it's like it gets out of what you were describing. It like it's out of actual relationship on the table.
Yes, that's what I've been reflecting on. Is that it can be that the juice, as Nicholas was talking about, becomes the rejection dynamic, which is this lopsided possession of a part of this other person where I'm still not actually in a relationship with this person. It's only a part of myself that I'm doubling down on to penetrate the other. And it feels like it's like possession now becomes what I've settled for instead of a real connection.
Yes.
But the problem is that there's such a high for a rejection type. You can be into the dynamic more than you're actually seeing or into that person, because it's not necessarily like you're like creating the penetration, because it's just you meet someone and maybe the chemistry or whatever it is, like that person just happens to really respond to whatever it is you're offering. And so that dynamic becomes the drug.
Oh God. Yeah. Totally.
More than the person. Rejection types can get addicted. Like Nicholas used that word. Addicted to doubling down on either the protecting function or the nurturing function, or in the case of 5, the abstracting symbolic object. Just addicted to that penetrating offering and getting deeper into the other, and the other, if the other is allowing themselves to be penetrated by what the rejection type is offering, to get to possess the other becomes a replacement for the connection that the rejection type assumes is not on the table.
Absolutely.
So with sexual 8, it's activating an experience and not as much activating a relationship.
Yes.
Say it again. Activating an experience, not a relationship.
Yes.
Yeah.
Like 2 is the relationship, right?
Yeah.
And 8 is the experience.
Well, I would say that it doesn't seem like 2 is the relationship, because it's not really a relationship if the 2 is just taking care of the other.
For sure.
It's more like it's the I don't know what to call it, but it's more like a heart, an emotional landscape. Mm-hmm. They're activating an emotional landscape, and with the 8, my sexual instinct or my instincts are from the perspective of being and perspective of an experience. And so it's like my existence facilitated this experience for you that is such like a tier 1 level of penetration. And that's one thing that I was thinking about, is that experience basically woke me up to the idea that was even possible, that my personhood could, what we talked about in the soul intercourse was a before and after experience for me, in the sense that was the first time that my personhood had penetrated another in such a deep life transformative way that it obliterated whatever I thought was possible in terms of attraction before. Because it may be in the past I would more insecure sexually in terms of like, how good do you look? What's your sexual prowess? I mean, why are these girls leaving? Or, maybe I'm not fucking them well enough, or I need to have more money. Like all these things that are in some ways commodities that are replaceable. So to experience for the first time that who I am could activate an experience for somebody, it was like, holy shit, that's irreplaceable.
Yeah. No. So I mean, during that experience, like, I think I even commented on the way that your being neededness was a turn on for you. And I mean, and you know, you can see like that's the line to two right there. You know, it's like in both, like David, I think you're right to use the term experience versus relationship, but it's like it's more like parental relationship, right? Like it's not like a adult relationship. It's like a parental relationship. And so I think you said something the experience over the relationship or something like that. Also, like I know I'm reusing a lot of the words, but I mean it rang true with my experience with past relationships as well, of like not a lot of relatedness, but I offered guidance and protection, you know, like I was with somebody that couldn't get around independently for a while, you know, and couldn't navigate because it was a whole different place. And so I can recognize even in that like line of two in myself of when I can feel somebody being like opened up in the heart space from my heart.
Yeah.
You know, like when I'm like, I don't know, even in coaching and stuff like that, like I can feel that. And it's like, it's still not about me as a person in some way, but it's like, I don't know. Oh, this works, you know?
Yeah,
like,
yeah. Well, it's go ahead.
The parental thing's also making me think of sort of like an analogy or whatever the right word is for it, but just like mother stuff is 1-to-1 and it's very intimate, close, you know, and that's analogous to two. And father is like when your father takes you somewhere to go experience something and go see something, you know what I mean?
Yeah,
totally.
Out in the world.
Yeah, you know, I was also reflecting on just my cynicism when people say they like me or they love me, or, you know, it's like, where's that coming from? And I started to realize that I know that there are different tiers of penetration. Like, you know, for example, when I started liking the Enneagram, getting to the Enneagram, let's say it's tier 5, I like the Enneagram and I'm interested, I'm curious about it. And I start to realize that the Enneagram, that these types are real, and you can type people. Now I'm excited about the Enneagram. And a couple years go by, I know what my type is. I'm starting to be able to recognize people's types around me. And now I'm like really passionate about it. So we're like at tier 3. And I start to get really good at it, and I'm starting to like really learn the Enneagram. It's like opened up a whole new world for me. And now it's like I'm like 5, 6, 7 years have gone by. Now I'm really obsessed with the Enneagram. I didn't expect to get here. Now like 15 years has gone by, and the Enneagram has like lodged itself into my psyche. It's part of who I am now. It's possessed me. It's taken. So that like tier 1 level of penetration, on some level, I feel like, I don't know if this is true for all rejection types, tracking to what degree it matters or to what degree this offering has penetrated. So when someone says, I like you, my first thought is like, I mean, how much? It's like if you like a guy, if some girl says, oh, you're really cute, you're really hot, I'm thinking there's a million cute, hot guys. There's a whole nother tier 1 level of like your personhood has invaded my own sense of self and how I experience the world. It's beyond like you look good, you're sexy, or you're interesting, you're funny. So there's so many different tiers of how a person might penetrate another. And I was just reflecting on how like this thing that we say about twos, or that they're creepy and are trying to get into your heart. And I'm like, dude, all the fucking rejection types are doing that shit in each of their centers. So that possession, like realizing that word really gets at what the rejection dynamic is about, is, you know, how I'm limited to this function or this fraction of a person, or that's the way I see myself. And so I'm doubling down on reaching into you to grab a hold of some, you know, previously untouched part of you that ensures that you're not going anywhere.
It reminds me of the thing we've said about 5s. You know, in a conversation, they start going on their thing. And so they're trying to possess your head center.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, so that word it's been hitting me hard. Like, holy shit, man! We're just as all the rejection types are just as creepy. Like, 2's not the creepy one. Like, they're all creepy from the perspective of their own centers.
Yeah, 5 wants to like change the way you see.
Yes,
like remove your eyes and put in new eyes to like, 5 as is kind of like what is it, like seeing the Matrix?
Yes.
Like code, and they like want to do that, but like in their way, like you're gonna see things through my lens. Another piece to this, though, I think, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that part of it though is like rejection type definitely wants that possession, but they're also really there's a part of them that is angling for somebody who can get through all their rejection-y stuff and kind of touch underneath that.
Yes.
And so, 8, I think is very clear where 8 does have a soft spot, and they do want somebody who can find that and hold that and meet that. But they're also like, on one hand, they're gravitating towards those who, for example, they might project heart onto because, then I can find my heart. Or I think 2 will, on one hand, be attracted to people that are kind of like difficult and maybe like stubbornly independent.
Yeah.
My mom, my dad, and it's like kind of like, let me get some of that independence. And it's harder for me to say for 5 how that
what they're
goes.
attracted to. I don't know if they're attracted to any particular type. What are 5s attracted to?
I would say though, it's somebody they can share in their world with. It's like I want not only to influence the way you think and see things, but I want somebody who can alter how I think and see things. That was something that before Alexander and I were together, I'd always like say like, God, like Alexander's so smart, like she should be on the podcast. She's so brilliant. She's really, and not a core 5, but a lot of 5 in me. And it's like what I experience with her is I can be in my own conceptual world with her, and she can be in her own conceptual world. And then there's like a real overlap where, I'm like blown away by the stuff she has to say and the insight she has. And I'm like, I don't experience this with people.
Yeah. I mean, you're fucking lucky, dude.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, the thing you were saying, John, about 8 and finding, that vulnerable person to have a relationship, to maybe make contact with that, so the 8 can do that. That's also conversely, though, it's like that thing I was talking about from that book, a little book on the human shadow, where if you're an 8 and you get into a relationship with somebody that's obviously vulnerable, then there's sort of this agreement that you're going to be the vulnerable one and I'm going to be the strong one. And then
right.
And then the 8 doesn't have to integrate it in a way.
Totally.
You've got this neurotic hole. Yeah.
That's exactly what I experienced. Because it just reinforces, I have to continue to double down on I'm the one who takes care of things. I'm the one who fixes things. And it sort of puts me in a corner, or ensures that I remain in that corner where, even just in general in life, like the rejection types end up pigeonholing themselves in, because they're doubling down so much, then those around them then continue to expect them to fulfill that role. And it ensures that, I don't actually, if I'm doing protecting function for everybody around me, then when do I actually get a chance to get to my heart?
Yeah, it's like I want to like let the job go a little bit, but I never let you. I never let you see that I want to let the job go a little bit. So then people go, "Oh, this person doesn't want to stop doing that job." So
that's right.
And so one thing that I recognize as a sexual rejection type is that it's not necessarily a good thing to get such an insane rejection high from a dynamic, because it probably means that the dynamic is so lopsided that I'm still not there.
Oh, okay.
So what as a sexual type is like, you want to find the attraction that gives you the strongest hit of, like
It's a drug thing.
It's a drug thing. But that's, for me, that would be continuing or putting myself in that rejection corner where if I'm getting this rejection high from a dynamic, it probably means I'm not there. I'm not even seeing that person because I'm possessing such a potent place in their existence or such an activating part of their experience that I'm not necessarily even tracking that maybe they're not even impacting me. I haven't even seen them in this dynamic. I'm just getting high off of my own supply of, oh, they're so into what I am and who I am and what I represent for their experience that I'm not even tracking that maybe they're not really affecting me at all. So it just hit me like a ton of bricks. Just like, holy shit, man. Like, an attraction can be really strong, but very wrong.
Yes.
And and so that there's a kind of attraction that can, like, it's a two-way street and it doesn't feel as frenzied, it doesn't feel as rabid, but it is more of a real connection. It's more of a real thing where it's not like I'm 80% of this dynamic and this person is like 20%, which feels more compelling, but it's like it's just playing into the rejection, possession thing. And so just reflecting on like how to loosen the grip. I think, loosen the grip on this possession thing. I think seeing my personhood, I think that was a big shift for me, that it's not all the things that I'm doing. It's who I am. And I shouldn't be doubling down or seeking out dynamics where I'm required to double down on activating somebody else's experience. It has to be a two-way connection.
Well, you're talking about like some kind of like really strong attraction that was wrong. It's like
wrong from the perspective that it's just feeding into this rejection possession
for sure
dynamic.
What I mean is like there's attractions that are attractive because, and this is like, when I talk about with object relations co-opting the instincts, is like, oh, you're attracted to somebody and under the guise of the like co-opted sexual instinct, you think you're attracted physically or sexually, but it's really like an old emotional dynamic or pattern that reinforces yours, being attracted to somebody that's going to reinforce your old pattern.
Yes.
So it's like it's not necessarily, there might be a body attraction, but in this case, it'd be like a lot of what's getting pinged is attraction from the ego being excited to reinforce itself.
Yes.
And it feels novel. It feels like the sexual instinct feels like it's a new thing, but it's like an old thing in the guise of something new.
Yeah, it is. That's a tough thing to come to terms with, that something might be so hot and compelling to you is actually just replaying some old bullshit, and that something might just seem okay, but it has the potential to be something really compelling, like in a real way.
Right.
And that's really hard to come to terms with, because it's like I'm just like a drug addict looking for the biggest drug high. Yeah. And that biggest drug high is probably like a really bad drug. Like, it's not going to end up going anywhere good. And so it's hard to reconcile that.
Yeah, it's like going for just frenzied amplification.
Yeah. And
which there's no way to do a relationship there.
Yeah. We were talking about this, just, reflecting on, this rejection dynamic possession thing of, it's also the lens that I'm applying to my reality. I'm applying to how I view myself and evaluate or any relationship or anything that I'm doing. So what's understanding what 8 is in terms of the forcefulness of 8 is that 8s are so potent because they are looking at the parts of themselves that they can apply leverage, or that has a disproportionate effect. Some parts of my personality that have the capacity to apply leverage. And that's what I'm going to expand and amplify. And so, for example, I think Joseph sent us a couple messages where he noticed that 8s were applying leverage artistically. That generally, like 8s will get into a creative field like music. I think he was talking about Beethoven and Wagner. They were composing symphonies that were so impactful in a very specific way that it kind of obliterated what a symphony could be.
That's right.
And I notice how 8s want to completely rewrite an experience, and they do it by expanding on a certain leverage point that they've discovered. Maybe like with Trump with the presidency, which is like one of the craziest things that's ever happened. He discovered that he could manipulate the media with controversial quotes and basically control the media narrative and dominate an election cycle. It's never been done before. And as a president, he, weaponized like his Twitter account. These are like, who else has ever done something like that before? And like a lot of 8s end up like finding, hey, this works. This has a disproportionate effect. I'm going to double down, triple down on doing that. And it creates like a really potent effect in a sense that it rewrites what's possible in that field. And I think David, you responded with something. I can't remember to what he said about 8s and art and potency or something like that.
Yeah, I'm not remembering it right now.
Oh, I think what you said was that a lot of 8s recognize that art itself is a potent leverage point.
Right. Because, and it's particularly, I don't know, art, this is a whole other discussion about sort of objectivity in art, but there is, in my view, such a thing as songs, symphonies, paintings, drawings being factually good, where they resonate at a certain level and have such a completeness to them that there's a kind of penetrating magic there. And that's leverage right there. And right. A lot of 8s recognize, that's why we have some art that's lasted hundreds of years. It's because it's this complete composition that actually, even though it's been celebrated by many, it doesn't need anybody. Mm-hmm. It's this whole egg that's it's like pulled some kind of potent magic from the ether or something.
Right.
That's serious leverage right there.
Yeah, like I was reflecting on how I think rejection types have that's their way of seeing themselves, and so what they bring forth in their personality is what can apply leverage. What I'm recognizing in a situation is where I can apply what's potent about this dynamic. So I've noticed that even in relationships, and I talked about this on the last pod, that I lose the ability to get upset or affected by things, either because I've figured out a way to handle it, or I've decided that that's not something that I can do anything substantial about, so I'm not going to care about it. So what happens over time, that what I care about in any field narrows to basically be where my personality can apply leverage. So like my interest in the Enneagram, for example, typing had a disproportionate effect on me. I had a disproportionate interest in it, and as I explored it, I had like disproportionate skill for it, and it just became like this. People are disproportionately affected by it. So of course my personality unconsciously latched on to typing, and I've invested over a decade of my life, in Enneagram typing. It just gets to a point where it's like, who's going to ever catch up to something like that? If you're possessed by something and you've made it, you've made your offering, it becomes a really potent before and after. And so I can see how like 8s are looking to do that in whatever field that they're in, is to find these potent leverage points and then expanding on that point. And that's what feels that's what feels forceful about 8s, is expansion on a potent leverage point. Mm-hmm. Another thing I was thinking about was like, I wonder, because there was this thread in the group about like what your favorite films were, and I was like, there's a good chance that the films that I've been really affected by probably have a rejection dynamic at the center of it. I was thinking about this penetration and possession thing, and Inception came to mind, which is Christopher Nolan's, I believe is a 5. And that idea of going into somebody's consciousness multiple layers deep to find to implant an idea that can, the project was to get the son of a CEO or the son of a huge company or owner of a huge company to sell the company or disband the company. And so they had to go a dream within a dream within a dream to implant an idea so that decision would happen. I was like, that's such like pulling the strings on another's consciousness. That level of penetration and possession of a part of another is like, that's a rejection story.
It's taking me sort of symbolically to penetration, which then gets to fertilization. And fertilization then creates, a figurative baby that then expands, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I looked at my list. I responded to that thread with like 5 films, and I was like, when I was answering the question, I was like, it's hard to pick a list of your top 5 films because there are a lot of great films out there. But I was trying to think of, what films have had a disproportionate effect on me. And I thought about There Will Be Blood. I don't know if both of you have seen that. I know.
Yeah,
I think
love that movie.
And I didn't expect that film to have an effect on me. It's kind of like a boring topic, just an oil man. But the character really had an effect on me. And even the idea of drilling for oil, there was a scene where they had their first successful oil well, and the oil was just exploding, and he was just standing there just like filled with joy and saying, there's an ocean of oil underneath this land and only I can get to it. And I was like, ooh.
Yeah, and he says that to his right-hand man, who might have been, I don't know, like an attachment type, right? And like having a team spirit.
Yeah.
And that was part of what was brutal about that line right there.
Only I can get to it. And I was like, oh man, that's like that's getting deep in terms of like my type structure, at least when I think about attraction, is like, it's not real until I've found a part of her that only I can get to. And I was like, damn, that's dark. I recognize in the films that I responded to, there's a leveraged rejection dynamic at the center of it. And I just seeing that, oh man, my entire life is framed from this point of view.
All right, like spoiler. With the end of Inception, like, how did the character maybe like they accomplished the mission and he and then he goes and then like the main character Leonardo DiCaprio goes home to like see his kids because that's where he like couldn't get into the United States or something.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And then it's like left ambiguous if he himself like ended up just caught in a fantasy or in a dream or something or virtual reality. And then There Will Be Blood ends with like him all alone in his mansion.
Yep.
And that's also kind of rejection-y.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like that's
Go for it.
That's part of what makes that. That's why those stories really affected me. It's like here you got an 8 who is like pulling all these strings to get everything. He wants everything. He gets everything, and he loses the thing that matters most, which is a relationship with his son. And in the end, even he gets the revenge. He gets the sweet fucking revenge of crushing his arch enemy, letting him know, I drank your milkshake, the land that you refused to sell me. Like I just slurped out all that oil that you thought I couldn't get. It's like I got like a rejection hit from that. It's like I still got it anyway. I still took it from you, and but he's alone. He alienated his son. Like he has no one, and so that thing I was talking about, like including 2, is that twos can isolate themselves. Twos aren't really connecting. They're just doubling down on getting into you.
It'd be interesting to see if there's like a 2 director, or like some sort of film that could depict the 2's rejection thing without going into positive outlook. Like how does the 2 like is there a film that depicts the 2 ending up
alone.
Alone in their own way. Like the end of Inception thing is an interesting thing as you're speaking and I'm thinking about it, because it's like,
did he get it done or not? Did he do it or did he not do it?
Yeah, it's all in my own head.
Right,
I've been living in my head. Like, it's just all here. And, it's like, maybe he did it and he's still in his head, whatever. It's like that whole thing doesn't matter, because it's having one kind of single pointed mission, and losing so much because of the narrowness of the ego structure.
It's the classic story, that Daniel Day-Lewis character. It's just like the 8 dictators.
Yeah.
They end up, because they've been such dicks to everybody around them, they're all alone at the end. And it's like, there they are. It's like Pacino in Scarface. Like, he's been an asshole to everybody. And so it's just him in his huge fucking palace mansion, taking on the final enemy onslaught or whatever.
Yeah, it's like, you got it, great, but
good job.
Everybody's
Good
gone
job.
though. Everybody's gone. There's nobody here to share it with. And it's really disquieting to sort of like, see my parents both as rejection types. They're, near the end of their life. So it's this feeling like looking at them and like, it's a cautionary tale to me, in the sense that you've done all this shit, you've done all this hexadding and making things happen and possessing different aspects of all these different people's lives, but it doesn't feel like no one's really there. Like they just have each other, but they're not really that connected. It feels, even when I was younger, I just felt like, man, my parents are not, I don't want to end up in a relationship like that. I don't want to end up like my parents. Like, it just feels like what can happen to rejection types is that they just isolate themselves. And because they're doing so much for others, they're possessing others, but no one's really touching the rejection type. And so, as a sexual type, I just realizing, I can get a stronger hit of a drug high from a certain dynamic, but it's just playing into this need to possess the other and still remain cut off from them.
Right. Yeah, and so, I think we all know this, but just like, sometimes the language of like being half a person or whatever, it's like that's the story that the rejection type has for themselves.
Yes.
But they're not half a fucking person.
Right.
And so some of the tricks or whatever, the ways to get back is like being curious about that other half person, but it's also like the loneliness or the disempowerment or whatever it might be, or the ignorance or, whatever like I think for 5, like there's a very clear sense that they're not a full person, like that's the thing of like what makes avarice a thing is it's like, I don't feel like there's a robust enough sense of self to like be in the world. And so, it's getting like, into the body or whatever, like not just being a conceptual being, but it's, like the rejection types, everybody, but the rejection types have to like do that work to recover the parts that they've cut off.
Yeah.
And it's like, when you and I did breathwork years ago, and you had like feelings and images of somebody that you broke up with like a long time ago come up. You're like, I don't even know that bothered me.
Yeah.
I had so Josh went to Burning Man,
Oh yeah.
And I went to Burning Man like years ago, and when I was in college, and it was like my first real serious girlfriend, and we were in like a weird space or something, and she like there are these like tents or whatever. There was a camp called Heebie Jeebies. It was like hippies and yoga and stuff like this, and there's this big thing, and it was kind of like the only chill zone in the whole fucking Burning Man. And my ex was like, we were in a weird space, and these guys like go around in alpha girls massages so they can like touch their bodies and hook up with them and stuff, and it's like very transparent. And anyway, my ex like right in front of me
what
like accepted a massage, and I like completely froze, like physically could not move or speak, and I was so like shocked and upset, and
damn,
yeah,
that happened.
Oh yeah, and
Jesus
I mean,
Christ.
well, I have a lot of like.
That's traumatic, man.
Yeah. No. Well, it's funny. I mean, first of all, I like part of like Burning Man came up because Josh is going and all this other stuff, and talking to Alexandra, and yeah, all my emotions from that experience just like came back.
Wow.
And I couldn't. I mean, it was crazy. This happened so long ago, and yeah, it was like right for me, and I was frozen, and I was like kind of like shit, like, being body last, I couldn't get back into my body, and I could mutter just like, I said, "What are you doing?" And then the guy like goes, "Oh, sorry, man," and like stops giving her a massage, like gets up and gets uncomfortable and leaves or whatever. And I don't remember how it resolved or whatever, but like that was something I just thought was like, that was like dead or whatever.
Yeah.
Like I thought about that since, but like somehow something around it just hit. I think part of it is because Alexandra like brings me in contact with more of myself. Like just, like, I mean, we talked about social blindness and not seeing yourself as a person, all that kind of stuff. And she's, social city that like attaching and socialing with me all the time.
Right.
And it just, and so, there's like, we're all carrying that kind of shit that we just thought was like siphoned away and didn't bother us anymore. And then are making future decisions based on the way that thing has been cut off. And then that creates a whole other level of bullshit that we've like, that will, keep cutting more off. It's like all this backlog of nonsense.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what you're saying is I wanted to make that, to find the right word to describe my own internal experience, even though I know it's not true. Yeah. That to a rejection type, that's probably the words that's probably the wording that they would most, that might resonate the most, even though it's like, those parts of me are still there. I still have a heart. Right. It just feels like it's not there. It feels like a phantom limb. And it feels like, I can feel these faint feelings there, but it feels so far away. And so like trying to find, I've realized that loosening the grip on the other side of the forcefulness thing of trying to activate, the more you double down on that side, the less you feel. And so the last maybe 5 years, I mean, OD has commented multiple times, people who knew me well 10 years ago would probably say that I've changed a lot. And in terms of I've softened up. And even the experience of the last year was another huge shift. That shit cracked me open. And, I think, John, you mentioned it, the New York zone, is that I'm different.
Yeah.
Like there's something, and part of what's happening is that I'm just starting to realize how much that my reality isn't just being orchestrated by me. And I mean, it's just the lie that I'm telling myself that my reality is just funny. Completely orchestrated by me. Chemistry is completely orchestrated by me, and just be affected by an other or by a dynamic. To be that affected was a big deal. And so it loosens the grip on, doubling and tripling down on the protecting and the activating an experience. It softens that up, which means I have a little bit more feeling on the other side. Like that phantom limb doesn't feel so phantom as much. So that's, I guess that's what the work for rejection is. Like, how do you not double down as much on the thing that you think your personhood is limited to?
Right. Exactly.
I've just been blown away this last couple of weeks, just realizing, like this is it. This is what the rejection. There's some other implications, I think, in terms of even just how sexual is framed, and like the wording, for example. Like I realized that, like when I talk to David about the sexual instinct, we're talking about it in terms of an experience because we're body types, and maybe like your instinctual approaches, like there might be like from the perspective of the different centers, it might be a little bit different. Like it might hit a little bit different. I don't think body types would necessarily relate to as much. Not to say that it's not true. It still rings true, but it's not necessarily the words that a body type might use.
It's partly a problem of words and layers, I think, or levels, because I mean, when you're talking about possessing someone in the way that you are, and it's that got that tunneling, targeting aspect of the sexual instinct, and which is, what is it? It's cutting off everyone else, all the other men, right? If you're, and so it is on one level competitive as hell, right?
Yeah.
But it's just at the heart version, it's more overtly competitive and slightly more, and maybe you could say more consciously competitive.
Yeah, yes, consciously competitive is what I'm getting at. It's like you're aware of the competition, so you have to put yourself ahead of them.
Yes.
Well, it's not that I'm not aware, or the eights are not aware of the competition. It's more that I want to obliterate the concept of competition by rewriting your experience, where it's like you're not even able to you'd have to be attracted to someone in a completely different way.
It's almost like you're saying it's a whole new competition that you're creating.
Yes.
Yeah, right.
The competitive field is now
it's different
not even
now.
what it was.
Yeah, it's like a whole new axis of what attraction means, in a sense that I've ruined. There's a clear before and after, and the person, you might be into somebody else, but it's like a whole new vista of what attraction has been created.
Yeah, no, I agree. I do think it comes out of a fundamentally competitive perspective, but it's not experienced quite like I'm in neck and neck competition or something. But something to add there too is that I think that rejection types, and other types too, but rejection types do like redefine the game.
Yes.
Right? But what can happen is they double down on the game.
Yeah.
And then the person
redefined.
Yeah, then the person that they're with starts feeling like, I'm not in a relationship, I'm in a game.
Right.
Like I'm in a dynamic, and then they like want to leave or something sometimes, not every situation, but sometimes they'll like want to leave because they want a fuller relationship. So I've seen examples.
Well, they're being rejected.
Yeah.
The other person is.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the full relationship can't be there. So they'll, so I'll see, like, I think there are, I don't necessarily know if there are of what the types the partners are, but I've seen dynamics where people have like a very strong thing, and there's a life before that partner and life after that partner dynamic for some people. They'll go like to like kind of like safe person after.
Yeah.
Somebody who's like easy and safe or something.
Right.
And it's like, okay, well, it's not as world shaking and not as all this other shit, but it's easy.
Right.
And I can actually feel like I'm in the relationship. And so it's like, that's what people with a lot of rejection need to like just be mindful of, is that, you got him, you possessed him. Now you got to like, it's like you get the possession part, and then he's got to like kind of almost like then there's the surrender part. You know what I'm saying?
The issue is that, at least, okay, I can say that if I get a strong hit of this possession dynamic, and then this person, this lopsided dynamic, and person wants to change the dynamic so that it's, more of a real connection, that is so disorienting. It feels like, I've said this before, but it feels like starting over, because that rejection dynamic, I was getting high on it, and I thought, this is so hot, and I feel so necessary and needed, and I'm activating this person's experience, and of course it's like a parental one-sided thing that eventually, once you want a real relationship, it doesn't feel as compelling anymore. So it's like you're trying to like find, how can I feel that same level of possession or, this potency that I'm looking for. But then it's like, you're sort of discounting having a two-way connection with this person.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, it can be a really destabilizing, disorienting kind of thing because the rejection type is attached to that dynamic, that possession dynamic, and so you have the person, but you don't actually have them. It's like they're trapped in. It's like,
yeah, they're in your dungeon.
I don't know. It's just been like disturbing to sort of like come to terms with this thing.
Yeah, totally. No, this is good. Yeah, it's like I mentioned, Courtney's thing that she observed about frustration, where it's like in 4, like, you didn't see me, you didn't show me how to function, so I'm gonna fucking do it myself. I'm gonna do it my way.
Mm-hmm.
And there's that sentiment, but there's an insecurity because I'm like a kid. The frustration. It's like the little kid didn't get his needs met, and now the little kid part of me is like trying to do what the adult should have provided. So there's like, there's an insecurity about my identity as a 4.
Still a kid.
Yeah, there's insecurity. Or there's insecurity about my goodness or structuredness or whatever as a 1. And for 7, it's also like getting my shit met. It's I still don't know what I'm doing. So there's like no, you gotta let me have my candy, because there's not that sense of internalized adult, like this is what I need and this is how I know I need to get it. It's like, no, that's what I need, that's what I need, that's what I need. So anyway, the flimsiness of all that, and then like the flimsiness of rejection, like the loneliness, and just the flimsiness of attachment. They're just like, it's just, for me at least, what's coming up is just like how absolutely flimsy our ego strategies are.
Yeah. And
like this, I think is really good because we have been going so hard on detachment, and we've just been, I'm sure, like, I think people who actually listen to this pod, not just fucks on Reddit, know how much we like love and respect attachment types.
Yeah.
And we've also been just like dissecting the fuck out of them ruthlessly. And so then, to do that to rejection, and like, we got another dive into frustration, but it's like, I just think the just humiliating everybody thing is really good.
Yeah. We're all getting these fucking pain. We're all getting this. Like, I really appreciate the people who've given feedback on this rejection series, like everywhere. Like, it's been one of our most popular episodes that we've done, and it's been a big deal for me personally, because I'm recognizing certain like really dark things about the way that I view myself and view every dynamic. And of course, there's this like 8 thing of this is the way my expansiveness shows up in the world, and realizing that, but it's also realizing how I'm not able to see all of things. I default to, even in the middle of a conversation, like, or even an idea or a concept, it's always what's the most potent, leverage point here that can be expanded and blown up. And so just like, how much am I missing of myself, or of others, or of attraction dynamics, or if I'm just looking for the most potent leverage point in anything that I'm doing. So it's just been a really eye-opening, sort of like a really unsettling realization about like my type structure.
Yeah, totally. I was coaching somebody, and they were an attachment type, but they said, man, I can, like, their mom is a 2 or something. And it was like, I think they said something like, I know that everybody says their mom's a 2, but like, I'm seeing the rejection stuff you guys are talking about, and it makes complete sense. And trying to attach to somebody who's rejection.
That's hard.
It's hard because I see that my sister and my mom, where it's like the attachment type wants like a wide open door. Like a mutually flowing Mobius strip of connection. But then
both parties adapting.
Both parties adapting. Yeah.
Parties adapting. And it's like, it's not penetration. It's like our rivers start to blend together,
Yeah.
The colors start to mix. And, but then a rejection offering like a pretty narrow opening. And so like the ways that the attachment will feel missed or frustrated or limit themselves to adapt to the limited rejection type is pretty interesting.
True, right.
Yeah. I think I'd shared this with you guys, but it seemed like it might be obvious, but it was, really personally clarifying for me. Like, I know Xander came on here and shared with us attachment to disconnect, which was a huge piece in the puzzle of attachment. And because the disconnect is what ensures that there's an adaptation. And I was like, but the thing that ensures that there's a disconnect in the first place is this thing that we initially noticed about attachment types of just assuming that we're on the same page.
Right.
Yes.
Because if we assume that we're on the same page, it inevitably leads to a disconnect, which the assumption is that once we land on a disconnect, that we're both going to adapt to each other, and we're again going to assume that we're on the same page, which starts the cycle again. And so the assumption of sameness, I was, reflecting on this, like, we talked about that on the live pod, like what is in the hexad type of attachment type or attachment fixes doing. The thing about the DJ is like, the DJ7 is assuming that the crowd is going to like, or the other is going to like what I like. Mm-hmm. So I'm going to
this vibe.
They're going to love it. And I'm also expecting that there is going to be some level of disconnect. And when that arises, I'm going to adapt to them and they're going to adapt to me. And we're going to get on the same vibe, and we're just going to keep doing that again. And so it's like a hexad type would, with attachment fixes, is expecting to play this game of we're all on the same page. We're going to run into a disconnect and we're both going to adapt to each other. And we're just going to keep doing that again and again and again and again. But that brought cycles. Yeah. But that brought it home for me. Like, oh, okay. The not assumption of sameness. I think we talked to Josh and Alexandra, and they added some new nuance to that, like assumption of being on the same page. Maybe some attachment types can come here and talk about that, but there's an assumption of some kind of we're on the same wavelength here, even though to some degree we're
trying
not
to accomplish the same thing, which is relatedness and attaching.
Right. Yeah. But inevitably that leads to a disconnect, but that's okay. We're just going to adapt through that disconnect and reassume that we're on the same page again and just keep doing that together. And that just creates attachment. That's what attachment is.
Mm-hmm. Anyway. All right. Let's find a time for Courtney next week.
Yeah. All right, dudes.
All right, this was good. There you go.
Really good. All right. Yeah, David, send me the recording.
Yep. We'll do.
All right. Okay. Later, guys. All right, bye.